August 17th, 1981. The Motion Lounge, Graham Avenue, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Dominick Napolitano stands behind the bar. He is 51 years old. He has been a made man for over a decade. A captain in the Bonanno crime family, a killer, a survivor, and right now, he is removing his jewelry, his watch, his rings. He places them on the bar in front of his favorite bartender. Then he hands over his apartment keys. He leaves cash. He says, "I am going to a meeting, and I do not know if I am coming back." Then he asks one last favor: take care of my pigeons. Most people know the name Donnie Brasco. They know the movie. They know Al Pacino and Johnny Depp. They know an FBI agent infiltrated the Mafia for 6 years and lived to write a book about it. But almost nobody knows the man standing in this bar right now, the man who vouched for Donnie Brasco, the man who trusted him, promoted him, defended him, and nominated him to become a full member of the family, the man who paid for all of it with his life. This is the story of Dominick "Sonny Black" Napolitano. He was born on June 16, 1930 in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, but he grew up across the line in Williamsburg, and he never left. Not really. His grandparents came from Naples, which made him Neapolitan in a world dominated by Sicilians. The Bonanno family was Sicilian to its core. That distinction mattered. It meant Sonny Black had to be sharper, tougher, more useful than the men around him just to earn the same seat at the table. The nickname had nothing to do with violence. Napolitano was born with unusually blonde hair for an Italian kid from Brooklyn. When it started turning silver in his 40s, he dyed it jet black. Vanity. That's all it was. He started as a petty thief on the streets of Williamsburg. The usual path. Stick-ups, small-time hustles, running errands for the older guys who hung around the social clubs on Graham Avenue. The kind of low-level crime that either gets you arrested or gets you noticed. Sonny Black got noticed. By the early 1970s, he had risen to soldier under Michael "Mikey" Cigars Sabella, one of the Bonanno family's most established captains. Sabella ran his operations out of Williamsburg, and Sonny Black became his most reliable earner, a man who showed up, kept his mouth shut, and handled problems without creating new ones. Sometime in the mid-70s, he was formally inducted, made, alongside a group of men who would define the family's bloodiest era: Joseph "Big Joey" Messino, Benjamin "Lefty" Ruggiero, Nicholas "Nicky" Cigars Santora. He had 3 sons, Peter, Aniello, and Rocco, all raised in Williamsburg. He was close with his cousin Carmine, also a Bonanno associate, and on the surface, he did not look like much of a gangster. Joe Pistone would later describe him as never flamboyant or brazen, always polite. He carried his own suitcases. He could hold a conversation about something other than crime. Retired intelligence detective Gary Jenkins put it more directly: he had a spine of steel. He was reportedly an expert marksman, very accurate with small caliber pistols, and as Pistone himself said, he'd kill you in a minute if you crossed him. By the late 1970s, the Bonanno family was tearing itself apart, and Sonny Black was about to step into the middle of it. If the most dangerous man you ever met was also the most polite, would you see it coming? Let me know in the comments, and if you're new here, hit subscribe. The Bonanno family in the late 1970s was a mess. It had been a mess for years. Ever since Joseph Bonanno's botched power grab in the mid-60s, what the papers called the Bonanno War, the family had been weakened, fractured, and looked down on by the other 4 families. The official boss, Philip "Rusty" Rastelli, was sitting in federal prison, and in his absence, a man named Carmine Galante had seized control. Galante was a different kind of dangerous. He declared himself boss of bosses, a title nobody had seriously claimed since Lucky Luciano. He controlled the family's heroin pipeline, which ran through Sicilian immigrants operating pizzerias across the Northeast, the same network that would later be exposed in the Pizza Connection case, But Galante was not sharing the profits. He cut out his own captains. He disrespected the other families. He acted as if the commission did not exist, and the commission noticed. The ruling body of New York's 5 families decided Galante had to go. Genovese boss Frank Thierry built the consensus. Even the retired Joseph Bonanno reportedly gave his blessing. And Rastelli, from behind bars, tapped 2 of his captains to coordinate the hit, Alphonse Sonny Red Indelicato and Sonny Black Napolitano. Together, they brokered a deal with Galante's own Sicilian bodyguards, Cesare Bonventre and Baldo Amato, who agreed to step aside when the time came. July 12, 1979. Approximately 2:45 in the afternoon, Joe and Mary's Italian-American restaurant, Knickerbocker Avenue, Bushwick, Brooklyn. Carmine Galante was having lunch on the back patio, cigar in his mouth. He never finished it. 3 men in ski masks walked through the restaurant and opened fire. Galante was killed. So was Capo Leonard Coppola. So was the restaurant owner, Giuseppe Turano. Galante's bodyguards stood there and watched. Sonny Black's exact role is still disputed. Some FBI informants named him as one of the 3 triggermen, alongside Anthony Bruno Indelicato and Dominick Big Trinchera. Frank Lino's later trial testimony placed him in a coordinating role outside the building. Either way, the reward was immediate. Napolitano was promoted from soldier to Capo regime captain. He replaced his own demoted mentor, Sabella. He inherited his crew, and he set up shop at the Motion Lounge on Graham Avenue, in the same Williamsburg neighborhood where he'd grown up. But killing Galante didn't bring peace. It brought a war. Despite working together on the hit, the Bonanno family fractured into 2 camps. On one side were the Rastelli loyalists, Pacino and Sonny Black. On the other were 3 captains who wanted Rastelli gone: Sonny Red Indelicato, Dominick Big Trinchera, and Philip Philly Lucky Giacconi. They were stockpiling automatic weapons at a junkyard in the Bronx. They were planning a coup. And the word reached Pacino before they could pull it off. Gambino boss Paul Castellano and Colombo boss Carmine Persico gave Pacino the green light. The message was simple: act immediately. May 5th, 1981. The 3 rebel captains were invited to a social club in Brooklyn for what they were told was a peace meeting. 4 masked gunmen were hiding in a storage closet. Among them was Vito Rizzuto, the future boss of the Montreal Mafia, and Salvatore Vitale, Pacino's own brother-in-law. The signal was subtle. Gerlando Sciascia ran his hand through his hair. When he did, the closet door opened and the gunmen came out firing. Trinchera, 350 pounds, charged them. He absorbed round after round before a shotgun blast finally dropped him. Giacconi was cut down trying to reach the back door. Sonny Red was shot in the back. He tried to crawl toward the exit. Pacino grabbed his leg. Sciascia pressed a pistol to his head and pulled the trigger. A 4th target, Frank Curly Lino, escaped by jumping fences in the dark. He was the lucky one. Sonny Black was stationed outside the club during the shooting, handling backup and logistics. The man who made sure nobody left who was not supposed to. The bodies were wrapped up and driven to a desolate stretch of land in Howard Beach, Queens, known as the Hole. A Gambino crew buried them. Indelicato's body was found weeks later. Trinchera and Giacconi would not be recovered until October of 2004. More than 23 years later, after Pacino himself flipped and told the FBI where to dig. After the 3 Capos murder, Dominick Napolitano was at the peak of his power. United Press International called him the winner in the power struggle. He and Pacino effectively ran the entire Bonanno family as a 2-man panel while Rastelli remained in prison. Pacino handled strategy and relationships with the other families. Sonny Black handled the street. His crew, operating out of the Motion Lounge, had become one of the most profitable in the organization. Gambling, loan sharking, hijacking, bank robbery, extortion, drug trafficking, illegal casinos in Florida. He had reach into labor unions and construction. He had connections in Tampa through Santo Trafficante Jr. He had a social club that doubled as a command center, where associates came and went at all hours and where the business of the street was conducted over espresso and card games. And here's the part that matters for what comes next. Sonny Black was ambitious. He was not content being one of two men running things. According to multiple sources, including Pacino himself years later, Napolitano wanted more. He wanted to be the undisputed street boss. He wanted to be the man the other captains answered to. That ambition would eventually become part of the justification for his death. But in the spring and summer of 1981, it just looked like confidence, like a man who had earned his seat. Everything was moving. Everything was earning. And somewhere in the middle of all of it was Donnie Brasco. The chain of introduction that would destroy the Bonanno family did not start with Sonny Black. It started with a soldier named Anthony Mira, who in early 1977 connected a man calling himself Donnie Brasco, supposedly a jewel thief and fence from out of town, with Benjamin Lefty Ruggiero. Lefty was a perpetually broke but well-connected soldier with a gambling habit and a big mouth. He took Brasco under his wing, made him a Bonanno associate, brought him around the clubs. The bond deepened fast. Pistone even served as best man at Ruggiero's wedding. When Sonny Black was promoted to captain after the Galante hit, Pistone and Ruggiero fell under his direct command, and a tug of war began. Lefty wanted to keep his prized earner. Sonny Black pulled rank. As Jenkins later put it, Lefty acts like he won out, but Sonny Black really is the one that won out. It was in Florida where the relationship truly took hold. Napolitano was running the King's Court Bottle Club in Holiday, Florida, and an illegal casino in Pasco County, both with the blessing of Tampa boss Santo Trafficante Jr. In January of 1981, Sonny Black met directly with Trafficante in an FBI bugged hotel room to discuss their shared operations, a meeting the FBI recorded and would later use in court. Sonny Black claimed Brasco directly during the Florida operations, telling him flat out, "That's it, you belong to me now." What drew Sonny Black to the undercover agent was not just earning potential, it was chemistry. Pistone had skills, lock-picking, alarm systems, the kind of technical knowledge that seemed like street experience, but was actually FBI and naval intelligence training. The FBI was funneling money through Pistone to maintain the illusion of a successful jewel thief, and Pistone played the role perfectly. He dressed right. He talked right. He never asked too many questions. He never seemed nervous. He was, in Sonny Black's eyes, the ideal protege, smart, capable, loyal, and hungry. But the connection went past business, way past it. Pistone slept on Napolitano's couch above the motion lounge. They watched Saturday morning cartoons together, two grown men, one of them a Mafia captain and the other an FBI agent sitting in front of a television set eating cereal like a couple of kids. They spent hours on the rooftop, where Sonny Black kept his prized racing pigeons, pedigreed birds with bloodlines from France, Germany, and Russia that could win him $3,000 a race. Those birds were his obsession, his escape, the one part of his life that had nothing to do with crime. Pistone later wrote about those moments on the roof. Sonny Black would lean on the railing and look out over the rooftops of the neighborhood where he had lived his entire life. And Pistone would watch him and wonder what he was thinking about. And then Sonny Black did something that would cost him everything. He started introducing Pistone as a friend of ours. In the Mafia, those words have one meaning. This man is a made member. It is a code phrase reserved exclusively for inducted members of the organization. To use it for someone who was not made was a violation of the highest order. But Sonny Black went further. He nominated Pistone for formal induction. He wanted Donnie Brasco to become a full member of the Bonanno crime family. There was a crisis along the way. Anthony Mira, Pistone's original contact, emerged from prison and accused Brasco of skimming $250,000 from a heroin deal. It was a lie, but in this world, accusations like that get people killed. Sonny Black defended Brasco through 2 months of sit-downs. He had the accusation dismissed. Without that protection, Pistone almost certainly would have been murdered. And then came the assignment that ended everything. Sonny Black told Brasco to kill Bruno Indelicato, the murdered Sonny Red's son, to make his bones. It was the final step before induction. The FBI had a decision to make. They could let their agent commit murder to preserve the most successful mafia infiltration in American history, or they could pull him out. They pulled him out. July 26, 1981. The FBI terminated Operation Donnie Brasco. Pistone wanted to continue. He believed Sonny Black would lie for him, push him through induction, and protect him the way he always had. But the murder assignment was too much, and his handlers shut it down. 2 days later, FBI agents Doug Fenkel, Jim Kinney, and Jerry Lohr walked into the motion lounge. They pulled Napolitano aside and showed him a photograph of Joe Pistone standing with fellow agents. They asked if he knew the man, and they told him he was an FBI agent. They also offered him a chance to cooperate, to come in from the cold to save his own life. He refused. FBI surveillance cameras captured what came next. Sonny Black was alone on the rooftop, his pigeons circling above him. It was the same rooftop where he and Pistone had stood together 100 times, the same railing he had leaned on, the same neighborhood spread out below. Except now everything about it was different. Every conversation, every late night, every favor, every moment of trust, all of it had been recorded, cataloged, and filed away in an FBI office somewhere in Manhattan. His girlfriend Judy later told Pistone what he said during those final weeks. He bore no ill will. He believed Pistone was only doing his job. He told her that Donnie was better than I was, than we all were. He said Donnie never made us do anything that we would not have done anyway. What seemed to torment him most was not the betrayal itself, but the impossibility of reconciling the things we had done together, the conversations we had, the feelings we had. Joseph Massino's response was swift. As Salvatore Vitale later testified, Massino declared that he had to give him a receipt for the Donnie Brasco situation. Whether the Brasco embarrassment was the sole reason remains debated. At the 2011 Bassiano trial, the now cooperating Massino claimed Napolitano was actually killed for trying to take over the family, and that the Brasco humiliation provided convenient cover for eliminating a rival who was becoming too powerful, too ambitious, and too difficult to control. Both motives may contain truth. What's clear is that by early August, the decision had been made at the highest levels. The commission itself was furious. They expelled the Bonanno family, a punishment that had not been imposed since the Banana War. The suspension would last roughly a decade, and in the meantime, someone had to pay for the embarrassment. Sonny Black knew it would be him. He spent his final days at the Motion Lounge. He did not run. He did not call the FBI back. He did not try to negotiate. According to people who saw him during those last weeks, he was calm, resigned, almost peaceful, as if he had already settled the account in his own mind. He had 22 days. On August 17th, he was sent for. He knew exactly what that meant. Before leaving the Motion Lounge for the last time, he took off his jewelry, his watch, his rings, and placed them on the bar. He handed over his apartment keys. He left money and asked the bartender to look after his pigeons. Then he walked out. Frank Lino and Stephen Cannoni drove him to the house of associate Ron Filocomo. Frank Coppa met them at the door and told them to go downstairs. As Napolitano started down the basement steps, Coppa slammed the door shut behind him. Lino shoved him forward. At the bottom of the stairs, Robert Lino Sr. raised a pistol and fired. The shot grazed him, and the gun jammed. Sonny Black was on his knees. He looked up and he said his last words, "Hit me one more time and make it good." Ron Filocomo fired several rounds. It was over. Frank Coppa would later tell investigators that Napolitano died like a man. They severed his hands after he was dead. In the Mafia, that is a message, symbolic punishment for improperly introducing an FBI agent to made members. He went from being called a friend to a man who didn't belong. Nearly a year later, on August 12, 1982, a decomposed body was found in a hospital bag at the corner of South Avenue and Bridge Street in Arlington, Staten Island. Dental records identified it as Dominick Napolitano. But a forensic question lingers to this day. The body showed a single .45 caliber wound. Informants described 38 caliber revolvers and multiple shots. In 2000, the FBI publicly acknowledged doubts about the identification. He was buried at Calvary Cemetery in Queens. He was 51 years old. If you were in Sonny Black's shoes and you knew what was waiting at the bottom of those stairs, would you have gone? Tell me in the comments. The dominoes started falling 12 days after his death. On August 29, 1981, FBI agents intercepted Benjamin Lefty Ruggiero as he headed to what would have been his own execution. Lefty was being summoned to a meeting, the same kind of meeting Sonny Black had walked into. Same phone call, same vague instructions, same destination he would not be coming back from. But the FBI had been monitoring Ruggiero since the operation ended, and they got to him first. They arrested him on the street, saved his life, and he did not even want to be saved. Ruggiero refused to believe the truth about Pistone. "He will never go against us," he told his lawyer. After Pistone took the witness stand and testified against him, Lefty snarled, "I will get that motherfucker, Donnie, if it's the last thing I do." He was sentenced to 15 years. He was released in 1993 with terminal lung and testicular cancer. He died on November 24th, 1994. He was 68. Anthony Mira, the man who first brought Pistone into the Bonanno family, was murdered on February 18th, 1982. He was shot 3 times in the face by his own nephew, Joseph D'Amico, on Massino's orders. Mira had been the original contact. He had introduced Donnie to Lefty. In the family's logic, the blame chain started with him. Another receipt, another loose end cut, another body in a parked car on a quiet street. The legal cascade that followed was devastating. Pistone's 6 years of intelligence contributed to more than 200 indictments and over 100 convictions across multiple Mafia families. His work fed directly into the landmark Mafia Commission trial from 1985 to 1986 and the massive Pizza Connection case. Joseph Messina was finally arrested in January of 2003 and convicted on July 30th, 2004, on all 11 RICO counts, including ordering the murder of Dominick Napolitano. He received 2 consecutive life sentences. And then he did something no boss of a New York 5 family had ever done before. He cooperated, became a government witness, testified against his own men. In 2013, he was resentenced to time served and released. The man who ordered Sonny Black killed for embarrassing the family walked free by betraying it. After the Brasco debacle, the Bonanno family implemented a new rule. Prospective members had to be on record with a made man for a minimum of 8 years before they could be considered for induction. The commission added its own safeguard. New members must commit murder in front of 2 witnesses, and 2 existing family members must vouch for any associate with their own lives. All because of one man who walked into a social club in Williamsburg and convinced everyone he belonged there. In 1997, the story made it to Hollywood. The film Donnie Brasco was directed by Mike Newell. Johnny Depp played Pistone. Al Pacino played Lefty Ruggiero. Michael Madsen portrayed Sonny Black. Pistone served as technical consultant and called the film 85% accurate. But there was one crucial distortion that tells you everything about how this story gets remembered. Many of Sonny Black's qualities, his warmth, his genuine bond with Pistone, his complexity as a human being, were transferred to Pacino's Lefty character for dramatic purposes. Hollywood needed a sympathetic mobster for its leading man. Sonny Black fit that description better than Lefty ever did. But Pacino was the star, so the real Sonny Black story got split apart and handed to someone else. And the scene everyone remembers, the doomed gangster removing his jewelry, saying goodbye, walking knowingly to his death, was given to Lefty in the film. In reality, that was Sonny Black's farewell. Lefty survived. Sonny Black did not. The movie made Lefty Ruggiero famous. It turned Sonny Black into a footnote. Pistone has spoken about it since. He said, "My intention in all of this was to put people in jail, not get them killed. However, they chose that life." On Sonny Black specifically, he said he went out like a man. He could have ran to the FBI and become an informant, which he did not. He said, "I'll take my medicine." On the bond between them, he said, "You can't be in an operation, know people, see them 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and not have some kind of friendship with them. But you have to know what that friendship is." Within a few years of Sonny Black's death, every man involved in killing him eventually cooperated with the same government he refused to help. Vitale flipped, Lino flipped, Coppa flipped, Massino, the man who gave the order, flipped. The code of silence that Sonny Black honored with his life became an anachronism. He kept the code. They did not. His own words, recorded by the man who would destroy him, still hang in the air. Every day's a fucking struggle because you don't know who's looking to knock you off. Every day somebody's looking to dispose of you and take your position. He understood the machine perfectly. He just never imagined the threat would come from the man watching cartoons on his couch. The Motion Lounge on Graham Avenue is gone now, demolished, replaced. And somewhere in Calvary Cemetery in Queens, if the dental records were right, a man who dyed his hair black and kept racing pigeons on a Williamsburg rooftop lies under a stone that tells you nothing about how he lived or how he died. The pigeons reportedly were given away. Nobody kept them for long. Kept them